In this video, I will be covering 12.4, the volume of prisms and cylinders, starting on page 819 of your text. First, I'm going to go over the three formulas that you need to know for this section. So the volume of a cube can be found by multiplying the area of your base times your height. So for a cube, it is special because every single edge length is the same. They are all the side length. So the volume of a cube is s to the third power, or s cubed. So if I gave you the side length of 5, you should be able to find that the volume is 5 cubed, or if you are to expand it, 5 times 5 times 5, which is 125. Let's go ahead and say it was inches. That makes it 125 inches cubed. Alright, moving forward, the volume of a prism is the area of the base. So you need to keep in mind that capital B stands for the area of the base. So flashing back to chapter 11, when you learned all the different formulas for area, such as area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. The area of a polygon is 1/2 the apothem times the perimeter. Area of a, let's say, rectangle was length times width. Alright, so these formulas you need to keep in mind when you're trying to find the base, because you may not know the base shape. Here, your base shape is a hexagon, so first you need to find the area of the base, and then multiply it by the height of the prism. It's important that you are able to identify the parts. Sometimes the letters can get confusing, as the height in this formula stands for something different than the height in the area of a triangle. If it was a triangular prism, you might have two different kinds of heights, so keep that in mind. So let me go ahead and I'll say the apothem, A equals 3, and the side length I'll say is 4, or actually I'll say the side length is 8 centimeters, 3 centimeters, and the height right here, h equals 10 centimeters. So what I first need to do is find the area of my base. So the shape is a hexagon, so I will be using 1/2 apothem times perimeter. So 1/2, and I gave you the apothem as 3, times the perimeter, so that means it's a hexagon, so it's 8 times 6, so that's 1/2 times 3 times 48, so that's 24 times 1/3, or sorry, 24 times 3. I took the 1/2 of the 48, and that would give me 72. Alright, and it's an area, so it should be centimeters squared. So into my volume, I'm going to put 72 times the height of my prism, and that will give me 720 centimeters cubed. Now on to volume of a cylinder. It is still relatively the same formula. We are going to be doing base times height, the area of the base times the height of the prism. However, I don't have to identify my shape of the base for a cylinder, as it is always a circle. So I know the area of the base is going to be pi r squared times the height of my prism. And you need to keep in mind whether they give you a right prism or a right cylinder. Sometimes it might be slanted, so they may give you your height over here as 7 centimeters instead of a slanted height. You are going to be able to use a Pythagorean theorem if they do give you a slant height of sorts. So let's go ahead and say the radius is equal to 4 centimeters. So instead of using BH, you can just plug it straight into pi r squared h. So pi r squared times h, which is 7. So that becomes pi times 16 times 7, which then that becomes 112 pi. And if you were to go ahead and multiply that out, 112 pi is your exact answer. However, if I say round to the nearest hundredth, you would give me 351.86 centimeters cubed. And those are pretty much the ideas. I'll continue and work through a couple more examples. In these two examples, I'm going to go over some of the more complicated concepts that you might see. So first, you really do need to have the formulas written down and be able to identify what kind of shapes you have. Are you dealing with a cube or a prism that you're going to need to identify the kind of base that you have, or a cylinder? Alright, so in these two examples, example 1, a cylinder has the height of 8 centimeters and the volume of 1,005.5 cubic centimeters. What is the diameter? So what I need to do is find the volume of a cylinder, which is pi r squared h, or this stands for your b. So what I want to go ahead and do is fill in the information that I know. I've got 1,005.5 centimeters cubed for the volume, and I don't know the diameter, so that means I also don't know the radius, but I do know my height, and my height is 8. So my first step is I want to move everything away from that r, so I'm going to divide each side by 8 pi, and get approximately 40.01, so 40.01, it's 00757, so I'm just rounding it, and the 8 pi cancels out there. So I get r squared. In order to solve for the radius, I need to take the square root, and that is going to give me 40.01. The square root of 40.01 is 6.33, approximately. This is approximate. Alright, so that's r. If that is my radius, I go ahead and I multiply that value by 2 in order to get my diameter. And that's going to land me at about 12.65 centimeters. Alright, since it's a diameter, it's a measurement, so it should just be plain old centimeters. For example 2, I not only need to find one volume for a, let's look at the bottom shape, a rectangular prism. I also need to find one for a triangular prism as well. So this being said, you can add volumes together, you can add areas together, and you can even subtract volumes and areas. For example, if you have a hole in something. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add, so I need the area of my base times my height. So the area of my base, if I draw for the rectangular piece, so I'm going to do the rectangular prism. And then I'm going to do the triangular prism and add those together. So yet again, area of base times height. Alright, for my total volume, the area of the base is going to be whatever 17 times 30 is, times the height of my prism, which is going to be times 10. And if I add these together, the area of my base, I need to make sure that for this one I actually properly identify my base. My base is a triangle here, so the area of my base, I need to take 1/2 little base times the height, which is 1/2 times the base of this triangle right here is actually still 17 feet times the height of that triangle, which is 9. So that gives me what the area of my base is, and I'll go ahead and find that quickly. And that's about 76.5. Alright, it's exactly 76.5 times the height of my prism. Now here, height of this prism is not strictly going up and down. It is actually going back here since it's a triangular prism and the base is facing forward, facing front and back. So the height is going to be 30 on this. So when I multiply all of these together and add the volumes, I'm going to get 5,100 feet cubed over here, feet cubed, plus 76.5 times 30, which is 2,295 feet cubed as well, plus the 5,100, for a total of 77,395 feet cubed. Alright, your homework is going to be page 822, 3 to 12, 19 through 22, and 24. Be careful with number 19 and 20. Make sure that you know what you're doing as far as the volume of the shape. Sometimes you're adding volumes together, sometimes there are holes that you need to subtract. And just be careful about finding the area of your base. Make sure you know your base shape first. Alright, good luck.